The Galactic Tribunal's chamber was vast and cold, a place where countless races came to judge, decide, and enforce their will. It hovered above a broken, dead planet, its walls glowing softly with holograms and ancient symbols. The air was thick with tension. Today a human stood before them, not just any human, but Sarah, a young engineer who had become a symbol of hope and danger all at once. She was small, hardly noticeable beside the towering alien judges, yet her presence filled the room with silent strength. Sarah didn't speak. She didn't beg for mercy or shout her innocence. She simply stood still, her eyes steady, watching the judges as they passed sentence on her. The tribunal's leader, a tall, slender being with pale blue skin and sharp eyes, spoke with cold finality. "Sarah of Earth," he said, his voice echoing through the chamber. "You are found guilty of treason and interference with galactic law. You are hereby exiled to Sector X9, known as the Maw. You will never return." The crowd gasped. Exile to the Maw was a sentence worse than death. It was a place of chaos and destruction, a region of space filled with violent storms, broken worlds, and an ancient terror no one dared to face. Ships sent there never came back. The tribunal knew this well. They meant for Sarah's exile to be a slow, inevitable death. Yet Sarah's face showed no fear, no desperation, only a quiet resolve. The truth behind the sentence was far from what the tribunal claimed. Months before, Sarah had been part of an expedition team exploring the ruins of an ancient alien city buried beneath Arkan Station's shattered homeworld. There, deep underground, she had found something extraordinary. A small, glowing cube, humming with power beyond any known technology. This cube was not just a relic, it was a weapon, one created by a long-lost civilization that had once ruled the stars. It held the key to power that could change the balance of the galaxy. Sarah had tried to warn the tribunal about what she found. She urged caution, knowing that such power in the wrong hands would bring destruction. But instead of listening, the leaders feared her knowledge. They worried humanity might become too powerful, upsetting the delicate control of the galactic order, so they branded her a traitor and cast her out. Sarah's exile was swift. Her shuttle, a small craft barely large enough to support a single pilot, was prepared hurriedly. There were no goodbyes. The tribunal's decision was final. Her only companion was the glowing cube, safely tucked away in her pack. As her shuttle detached from Arkan Station and slipped into the blackness of space, Sarah felt no sadness. She only felt the weight of the unknown ahead. The Maw was a swirling chaos of energy storms and gravity anomalies. Sensors on her shuttle flickered and died under the assault of magnetic tempests. Stars twisted and shimmered oddly as her ship was pulled deeper into the deadly sector. The environment was unlike anything Sarah had ever experienced. It was as if the universe itself wanted to crush her, to erase her existence. But Sarah was not just any human. Years of training, focus, and survival instincts sharpened her mind. She remained calm, steady at the controls, refusing to panic. Then came the beast. It emerged from the darkness like a nightmare made real. A colossal creature, part machine, part living energy. It moved with terrifying grace and power. Its scales gleamed with an unearthly metal, and its eyes burned with a fierce intelligence. This was no mindless monster. It was a predator, a guardian of the Maw, a creature that had destroyed countless ships and killed hundreds of beings from many different worlds. The beast's arrival sent a shockwave through Sarah's shuttle. She felt the ship shake, her heart pounding. But instead of fleeing or fighting, Sarah did something unexpected. She stopped moving. She held her breath and reached into her pack, pulling out the glowing cube, the very thing that had brought her here. The cube pulsed with a strange light, as if sensing her will. For a long moment, the beast hesitated, circling her shuttle, eyes locked on the cube. Sarah said nothing. She made no aggressive moves. Instead, she let her calm fill the silence between them. It was as if she was speaking in a language beyond words, a language of understanding and respect. And slowly, the impossible happened. The beast backed away. It did not attack. Sarah's exile had become something else entirely. Alone, in the darkest corner of space, she had faced death and not only survived but tamed the greatest terror of them all. In that silent moment, a bond was formed, one that would change the fate of the galaxy forever. Sarah's small shuttle drifted deeper into the deadly heart of the maw, a place whispered about across star systems as a cosmic graveyard. The moment she crossed the invisible threshold, the universe around her seemed to change in ways she had never imagined. The stars flickered and shifted oddly as if caught in a strange dance. Magnetic storms crackled through space, sending violent surges that made her ship's instruments flicker and fail. Sensors that once could spot an enemy from light years away now blinked out one by one, leaving her blind to the dangers lurking in the darkness. The silence around her was thick and heavy, broken only by the steady hum of her ship's engine and the faint pulse of the glowing cube nestled safely in her pack. The maw was a swirling nightmare of space. Twisting gravity wells tugged unpredictably, warping time and space so that distances felt both near and impossibly far. Planets and asteroids hung shattered in unstable orbits, remnants of ancient battles or cosmic disasters. Sarah knew that navigating through this chaotic maze would test every ounce of her skill and courage. Days turned to nights and back again, though time itself seemed to lose meaning here. Sarah kept her focus, her hands steady at the controls, as the storms battered her shuttle relentlessly. Each pulse of energy felt like a slap from the void itself, trying to tear her craft apart. She patched systems and adjusted shields with quick precision, never allowing fear to settle in her heart. She had been cast out to die, but she was not ready to give up. The glowing cube was more than a relic. It was her only hope. She studied it when she could, trying to understand its strange power and what secrets it might hold. It hummed softly, responding to her touch and her thoughts, as if alive and aware. The cube seemed to be a beacon of light in this dark place, and Sarah felt a strange connection to it, something beyond science or reason. It whispered promises of strength and survival, if only she could learn its language. Then, in the midst of this chaos, the greatest threat appeared. The beast. It was not just a monster, but a living legend among the scattered survivors and lost fleets in this sector. Shaped like a massive dragon made of metal and dark energy, it moved with terrifying speed and grace. Its eyes glowed with cold intelligence, and its immense body shimmered with power that no human technology could match. It was said the beast had been born from the ancient wars, a weapon turned wild, hunting anything that dared enter the maw. Entire fleets had been destroyed by its claws and breath, leaving nothing behind but silence and drifting wreckage. Sarah's heart pounded as the beast's enormous form emerged from the swirling darkness, its massive wings casting shadows across the stars. The shuttle trembled under the shockwave of its arrival, but instead of panicking, Sarah's hands moved calmly, reaching into her pack. She pulled out the glowing cube, holding it up toward the terrifying creature. Her breath was steady. She did not scream or fire weapons. She offered no threat. Instead, she held the cube out silently, like a peace offering. The beast circled slowly, eyes fixed on the glowing light. Sarah felt its power wash over her, a mix of rage, loneliness, and ancient pain. It was not a mindless killer. It was wounded and lost, a guardian trapped in endless fury. The cube's light flickered in response to Sarah's calm will. For the first time in many years, the beast hesitated. Sarah closed her eyes and reached deeper into the strange connection forming between her and the creature. She imagined peace, not war, trust, not fear. Slowly, the great beast stepped back, lowering its massive head as if bowing to her quiet strength. It was a moment no one believed possible. Alone in the vast darkness of the maw, Sarah had tamed the impossible. She had faced the most feared creature in the galaxy, not with weapons or anger, but with silence and courage. The beast, once the hunter, now guarded her, circling her shuttle like a shadowed protector. Days passed as Sarah adapted to her strange new life. Her shuttle became more than just a small craft. With the power of the cube, it merged slowly with alien technology she discovered scattered through the wreckage of the Maw. Her home was no longer fragile. It was strong, alive with energy. And beside her, the beast whom she named Maelstrom remained close, never leaving her side. She studied the cube, learning its secrets piece by piece. It was clear this weapon was made by a civilization that had vanished long ago, their power too great for the galaxy to handle. The cube and the beast were linked, parts of a single system designed for war and destruction, but broken and left to drift in silence. Sarah understood now that the beast was not just a creature to fear, but a lost soul, waiting for someone to heal it. She was that someone. Her exile was no longer a sentence of death but the beginning of a new chapter, a silent exile where she found power and a tamed beast to change the future of humanity and the galaxy. The silence of the Maw was broken one day by the sudden crackle of Sarah's ship sensors. For weeks she had moved cautiously, learning to read the strange signals that flickered through the chaos of this broken sector. But this time the readings were different, sharp, precise, and undeniably dangerous. A fleet was approaching. Sarah's heart tightened as she scanned the distant blips on her weakened instruments. These were not explorers or traders. The shapes were large armed warships, and their pattern spoke of a coordinated attack. Her mind raced. Who could be coming here? What did they want in this forsaken place? The answer was clear as the ships drew nearer: the Galactic Tribunal. They had sent hunters to finish what they started. They wanted to silence Sarah forever, to destroy the secret she carried with her, the glowing cube and the beast she had tamed. There was no mercy in their orders. Sarah's exile was meant to be her death sentence, but she was very much alive, and now hunted like a rebel. With no time to waste, Sarah prepared her shuttle and summoned Maelstrom, the mighty beast, from the shadows where it had patiently waited. The creature rose, enormous and fierce, wings spreading wide like a dark storm cloud against the swirling stars. Sarah felt a surge of strength as the cube pulsed in her pack, linking her and the beast in a silent bond of power. The beast's growl echoed through the void, a warning to the approaching fleet. This was no longer a game of politics or exile. It was a battle for survival. As the first ships entered the Maw's unstable orbit, they were greeted by a sudden and overwhelming attack. Sarah, using the advanced technology fused from the cube and the alien ruins, commanded her shuttle to strike with speed and precision. The beast lunged from the darkness, tearing through enemy ships with claws of metal and blasts of raw energy. The space around them became a chaotic battlefield of fire and metal. Explosions lit the void, and debris floated like deadly stars as ships were ripped apart. Sarah's mind worked faster than ever, piloting through the storm of battle, guiding the beast where it could do the most damage, and protecting her fragile vessel from the relentless attacks. The Tribunal fleet was larger and more heavily armed than anything Sarah had faced before. Their ships were built for war, bristling with weapons designed to destroy planets. But Sarah's advantage lay in her knowledge and the beast's raw power. The glowing cube had unlocked abilities in the beast that no one in the galaxy had seen. It could absorb energy blasts and redirect them with crushing force. It could move faster than light in short bursts, striking like a shadow and disappearing before the enemy could react. Sarah's exile had forced her to learn quickly, to adapt and fight with cunning rather than brute strength alone. The battle raged for hours, neither side willing to back down. Sarah felt exhaustion claw at her, but her spirit burned brighter than ever. She was fighting not just for herself but for all of humanity, cast out and underestimated by the galaxy's rulers. Every move she made was a message. Humanity would not be crushed or forgotten. The beast, too, fought not just out of instinct, but loyalty to Sarah. Their silent connection was a force beyond weapons, a reminder that even in the darkest places, trust and strength could be found. In the chaos, Sarah noticed something troubling. One of the Tribunal's ships was heading straight for the cube in her pack. It was a specialized attack vessel, designed to capture and analyze alien tech. If it succeeded, the cube's secrets would be lost, and with them, any chance of turning the tide. Without hesitation, Sarah pushed the beast toward the incoming ship, directing it to intercept. The clash was brutal. The beast's claws tore through the hull and energy crackled as the two forces collided. Sarah's shuttle dodged laser fire and missiles, narrowly avoiding destruction. Her hands flew over controls, activating shields and weapons salvaged from the alien ruins, trying to keep her ship alive just long enough. Finally, the specialized vessel exploded in a shower of sparks and fire, drifting helpless in the void. The other tribunal ships faltered, their formation broken. Sarah seized the moment, ordering Maelstrom to unleash a devastating energy wave that rippled through the enemy fleet, disabling their systems and forcing a retreat. The Maw fell silent once more. Though victorious, Sarah knew this was only the beginning. The tribunal would not give up easily. They feared what she had found and the power she wielded with the beast. She was a marked woman, a symbol of rebellion, and a living threat to the fragile peace enforced by the galaxy's rulers. But Sarah's exile had forged her into something stronger than they imagined. A silent warrior with a tamed beast at her side, ready to fight not just for survival, but for the future of all humanity. After the fierce battle with the tribunal fleet, Sarah and Maelstrom retreated deeper into the Maw's dark reaches, where the chaos of shattered stars and dying worlds hid them from prying eyes. Though the immediate threat had passed, Sarah's mind was heavy with the weight of what lay ahead. The galaxy's rulers had now marked her as a dangerous enemy, and the power she wielded with the glowing cube and her enormous beast companion was unlike anything they had faced before. She understood that survival meant more than just avoiding ships and fighting off attacks. It meant preparing for a war that could decide humanity's place in the stars. So Sarah began to explore the ancient ruins scattered throughout the Maw, remnants of a long-lost civilization that had created technology far beyond current understanding. These ruins were both wondrous and deadly, filled with strange machines, cryptic symbols, and technology that seemed alive. With careful steps, she moved through the eerie silence of forgotten temples and broken space stations, studying the glowing cube in her pack and its connection to the vast machinery around her. She found that the cube was a key, capable of unlocking dormant systems and awakening power that had lain untouched for centuries. As she worked, Sarah also trained with Maelstrom, learning to control the beast not just in battle but in their shared bond. The creature was powerful and wild, but it responded to her quiet will and growing understanding. Together they formed a rare partnership between human and alien force, two beings outcast and misunderstood, finding strength in each other's silence. The beast's energy pulses synced with the cube's light, and Sarah discovered she could send commands not through words but through thoughts and feelings, building a connection that was almost like a conversation without sound. This connection became crucial as the danger from outside grew. The tribunal was relentless, sending more fleets and hunters into the Maw, determined to capture or destroy the secret Sarah protected. But Sarah no longer fought alone. Maelstrom was not just a weapon, it was a guardian and a friend. When ships approached, the beast's roar echoed through space, warning foes to stay away or be torn apart. Sarah's shuttle, now enhanced by ancient tech, moved with unmatched speed and agility, striking enemies with clever tactics rather than sheer firepower. Her exile, meant to be a death sentence, had become a training ground where she transformed into a warrior who could challenge the galaxy's mightiest fleets. Despite the hardships, Sarah found moments of peace in the strangest places. Floating among the ruins, she reflected on the life she had lost, the family, the friends, the home she had been torn from, and the future she was fighting to create. Memories fueled her resolve, reminding her why she could never surrender. In the quiet hours, Maelstrom would gently nudge her, a silent reassurance that she was not alone. They had become two halves of a whole, bound by fate and necessity. But the true test came when Sarah discovered a hidden chamber deep inside an ancient star fortress. It was a place of incredible power, its walls glowing with an eerie light and its control systems humming with energy. Here, the cube's power surged, unlocking long-lost weapons and defenses that could turn the tide of war. Sarah realized that this fortress was a key stronghold, one that could protect humanity and challenge the galaxy's oppressors. However, activating its full potential would require great sacrifice and perfect timing. The fortress was a beacon, and once awakened, it would draw attention, bringing the full wrath of the tribunal and other hostile forces to the maw. As Sarah prepared to unleash the fortress's power, she faced a terrible choice. The beast's energy was linked to the cube, and using the fortress meant risking Maelstrom's life. She hesitated, torn between her loyalty to the creature who had saved her and the desperate need to defend humanity. But she knew that without this power, the galaxy would crush her exile and everything she stood for. With a steady breath, Sarah made her decision. She activated the fortress, sending waves of energy rippling through the maw. The ancient machines awoke, shields rose, and weapons charged with deadly promise. Maelstrom stood by her side, its massive form glowing with renewed strength, ready to defend their new home at all costs. The galaxy would come for them, and Sarah was ready to meet it head-on. Her silent exile had transformed into a powerful stand, a fight not just for survival but for freedom, for honor, and for the future of humanity. She was no longer just an exile cast out to die. She was a force to be reckoned with, a symbol of hope and defiance in a dark and unforgiving universe. The activation of the ancient star fortress sent a ripple through the darkness of the maw, and Sarah knew that nothing would ever be the same. The glowing walls pulsed with power, illuminating the twisted wreckage of shattered ships and forgotten worlds. Yet the moment of hope was cut short by the sudden arrival of the Tribunal's most feared warlord, Commander Vrax, who led a brutal fleet of death-dealing ships into the fortress's orbit. His name was whispered in fear across the galaxy, a ruthless tactician known for crushing resistance with cold precision. His fleet was vast, armed with cutting-edge weapons and heavily shielded vessels, designed to overwhelm even the strongest defenses. As his ships surrounded the fortress, Sarah stood on the command deck of her shuttle, feeling the tension rise like a storm. Maelstrom growled low, sensing the danger, its massive frame coiled to strike. Sarah's mind raced to devise a plan. She knew that this battle would test everything she had learned and everything she stood for. The fortress's defenses were powerful, but even their combined strength might not hold against Vrax's relentless assault. The battle began with a thunderous roar. The Tribunal fleet unleashed volleys of plasma and missile fire, each strike threatening to breach the fortress's shields. Sarah guided Maelstrom as the beast tore through enemy ships, ripping them apart with devastating claws and blasting energy. Despite their power, the fortress's systems strained under the constant assault. Explosions rocked the walls, alarms blared, and circuits flickered. Sarah's hands moved quickly over her controls, coordinating the fortress's automated weapons and directing energy to weakened shields. Every second counted. She had to hold the line until reinforcements arrived or find another way to break the siege. Commander Vrax was clever and cruel, adapting his tactics as the battle raged. He sent swarms of smaller attack fighters to harass Sarah's shuttle and distract Maelstrom, while his heavy cruisers focused on weakening the fortress's core. Sarah fought with fierce determination, dodging fighter swarms and commanding the beast to protect vital areas. The clash became a deadly dance of survival and strategy. In the midst of battle, Sarah's thoughts flickered to the glowing cube. Its power had saved her before, but she sensed it was reaching its limit. The energy between her and Maelstrom was linked to the cube, and pushing too hard might cause a catastrophic overload. Yet desperation forced her to take risks. With the fortress's shields faltering, Sarah made a bold decision. She called upon the cube's power, channeling its energy through Maelstrom in a concentrated burst. The beast erupted in a brilliant blaze of light and strength, its attacks more fierce and precise than ever before. Enemy ships were shredded, and the fortress's defenses surged back to full power. But the strain was immense, and Sarah could feel the toll on both herself and Maelstrom. Her body ached with exhaustion, and the beast's glowing eyes dimmed. Still, the sudden reversal threw Commander Vrax off balance. His fleet faltered, and some ships began to retreat. But the warlord was not finished. He unleashed a secret weapon, a massive black starship that dwarfed even the fortress in size. This ship emitted a pulse that began to drain the fortress's energy, slowly shutting down its defenses. Sarah's heart sank. The fortress was losing power, and without it, they would be defenseless against Vrax's final assault. Desperation drove her to seek help beyond the maw. She activated a hidden transmitter embedded in the fortress's core, sending a desperate call to Earth and the scattered human fleets. She knew that only a united human force could stand against the Tribunal's might. While waiting for reinforcements, Sarah and Maelstrom continued to fight off waves of enemy ships, buying time and holding the fortress as best they could. The bond between them grew even stronger, silent but unbreakable as they moved like one living weapon. Sarah's thoughts were heavy with the possibility of sacrifice. The fortress was a beacon of hope, but it was also a trap. She understood that victory might come at a great cost, possibly even her own life or Maelstrom's. Yet her will was unshaken. Humanity's survival depended on this moment, and she was ready to face whatever darkness lay ahead. The arrival of distant human warships brought renewed hope. They surged into the battle, their sleek, powerful vessels cutting through. The enemy fleet with unmatched skill. The tide of battle shifted. Commander Vrax's forces were pushed back, their retreat chaotic and desperate. The fortress remained standing, battered but unbroken. Sarah, exhausted but alive, watched as the stars above the maw flickered with the light of humanity's resilience. Though the war was far from over, this victory was a sign, a promise that the silent Exile and her tamed beast could change the fate of the galaxy. After the fierce battle around the ancient star fortress, the tide of war seemed to shift for the first time in a long while. But Sarah knew this was only a brief respite. The arrival of the human fleet had pushed back Commander Vrax's forces, but the enemy would not give up easily. Vrax was a cunning and ruthless leader, and he would return with greater numbers and deadlier weapons. Meanwhile, inside the fortress, Sarah faced new challenges. The ancient technology was fragile, its systems damaged from the battle and slowly failing under the strain. Repairing and maintaining the fortress became urgent. Every moment wasted could cost them everything. Sarah moved through the halls alongside Maelstrom, their bond deeper than ever. Together they worked with the small team of engineers and warriors who had gathered, scouring the fortress's vast network for weaknesses and hidden strengths. They found rooms filled with dormant weapons, control centers that still hummed faintly, and vast stores of energy waiting to be unlocked. But unlocking these secrets required knowledge far beyond what they had. Sarah had to decipher alien codes and forgotten languages, puzzle over complex mechanisms, and make tough decisions about how to use limited resources. She felt the heavy burden of leadership. The lives of everyone fighting alongside her and countless others depending on their success rested on her choices. Outside the fortress, the human fleet regrouped, preparing for the inevitable next assault. Messages from Earth carried words of hope and encouragement, but also warnings. The war was escalating and entire systems could be lost if they failed. Sarah's team sent out scouts and spies to gather intelligence on tribunal movements. They learned that Vrax was building a massive dreadnought, a warship so powerful it could destroy entire fleets with a single salvo. This weapon could undo all their progress and shatter human resistance. Sarah's mind raced as she plotted how to counter this threat. She knew the fortress alone couldn't stand against such a weapon. It was time to take the fight beyond the maw, to strike at the heart of the Tribunal's forces. But this meant venturing into hostile space, deep into enemy territory where danger lurked in every shadow. Sarah and Maelstrom prepared for the mission with fierce determination. They trained relentlessly, honing their skills and deepening their connection. The beast was growing stronger too, its energy more controlled and precise. Sarah had learned how to synchronize their attacks, combining her strategic mind with Maelstrom's raw power. They were becoming a weapon like no other, a silent force capable of turning the tide of war. Before leaving, Sarah made a quiet visit to the fortress's ancient archive, where she discovered a star chart that revealed hidden routes and secret bases used by the long-lost civilization that built the fortress. these locations could hold, the key to advanced weapons or allies who might help them. It was a risky gamble, but Sarah knew they had no choice. The mission began with a swift, daring jump through space. Sarah piloted their ship with expert precision, threading through asteroid fields and enemy patrols, using every trick she knew to avoid detection. The silence of space was broken only by the hum of the ship's engines and the steady pulse of the cube that linked her to Maelstrom. When they reached the first secret base, they found it abandoned but filled with powerful weaponry and technology. Sarah and her team quickly salvaged what they could, repairing ancient turrets and energy cannons. But their presence did not go unnoticed. Enemy scouts discovered the intrusion and a fierce battle erupted. Sarah and Maelstrom fought side by side, moving as one through the narrow corridors and open skies above the base. The beast's strength was overwhelming, tearing through enemy ranks while Sarah's quick thinking kept their team alive and focused. The victory came at a cost. Several allies were wounded, and the base suffered heavy damage. But the weapons and intelligence they gained were invaluable. As they moved from one secret site to another, Sarah faced moments of doubt and exhaustion. The weight of exile, the endless fighting, and the lives depending on her pressed heavily on her shoulders. Yet every challenge strengthened her resolve. Maelstrom remained her constant companion, a reminder that even in silence there was trust and understanding. Together, they uncovered pieces of a larger plan, an ancient network of defenses and hidden power that could shift the balance in humanity's favor. But time was running out. The Tribunal's dreadnought was nearing completion and Vrax's forces were gathering for a final, devastating attack. Sarah sent urgent messages to Earth and the fleet, warning them of what was coming. She prepared for the battle that could decide the fate of the galaxy. In the quiet moments before the storm, Sarah reflected on how far she had come, from a silent, exile castaway to a leader holding the fate of millions in her hands. The war was not just about survival anymore. It was about hope, about proving that humanity's spirit could not be broken. With Maelstrom by her side, she was ready to face the darkness, to tame the beast of war and lead her people to victory, or glorious sacrifice. The future was uncertain, but Sarah knew one thing for sure: the fight for humanity had only just begun. The war had reached its darkest hour as Sarah prepared for the final battle that would decide the fate of humanity and the galaxy. The dreadnought, a colossal ship unlike anything ever seen, loomed like a shadow over the stars, a floating fortress of destruction capable of wiping out entire fleets in a single strike. Sarah stood on the bridge of the repaired fortress, surrounded by her closest allies, their faces marked by exhaustion, but shining with fierce determination. Outside, the human fleet was gathering, a brilliant display of ships ready to face near-certain death to protect their home. Sarah felt the weight of responsibility heavier than ever, knowing that this might be their last stand. She looked at Maelstrom, the tamed beast that had become more than just a weapon, a symbol of humanity's strength, resilience, and silent courage. Together, they formed a bond that no enemy could break. As the Tribunal forces advanced, the battle erupted with overwhelming force. Explosions lit the void, and starships danced a deadly ballet of lasers, missiles, and plasma fire. Sarah commanded, her forces with a calm but unyielding voice, directing the fleet through chaotic maneuvers to outsmart the enemy. Maelstrom charged into the thick of battle, its enormous claws tearing through warships and shields alike. The beast moved with terrifying speed and precision, its every strike calculated yet wild, unstoppable yet controlled. Sarah synchronized her actions with Maelstrom's ferocity, guiding the beast through enemy ranks as if it were an extension of her own will. The clash was brutal and unrelenting, a storm of fire and steel that threatened to consume everything. Enemy warships fired relentlessly, aiming to disable the fortress's critical systems and isolate the human fleet. But Sarah's strategy was clear: hold the line at all costs, protect the fortress, and wait for the perfect moment to strike. Midway through the battle, a sudden shift occurred. The dreadnought unleashed its secret weapon, a massive energy cannon, capable of devastating the entire human fleet in a single blast. The cannon charged slowly, its glow growing brighter with deadly intent. Panic spread among the human forces, and for a moment, it seemed all hope was lost. Sarah, however, remained focused. She knew the fortress housed an ancient energy core, a relic from the long-gone civilization that built it, which could counter the dreadnought's weapon if harnessed correctly. Calling upon every ounce of her skill and courage, Sarah activated the core and linked it with Maelstrom's power, channeling a massive surge of energy that could shield the fleet from destruction. The beast roared with fury, its form glowing, brighter than ever before as it became a living conduit of energy. The human fleet, shielded by this overwhelming power, withstood the dreadnought's blast, the shockwave shaking ships but leaving them intact. Seeing their secret weapon neutralized, the tribunal forces grew desperate. Vrax himself appeared in the thick of the fight, leading an assault to destroy Sarah and Maelstrom. Their confrontation was fierce. Vrax's ship was heavily armored and armed with deadly weapons, but Sarah and Maelstrom fought with a fierce unity born of shared struggle and trust. The beast's claws ripped through the enemy hull while Sarah's quick thinking and precise commands kept them one step ahead. The fight was brutal, pushing both sides to the limit. Vrax taunted Sarah, trying to break her spirit with words, but she stood silent and steady, her resolve unshaken. The battle became a test not only of strength but of willpower and heart. In a final, desperate move, Sarah harnessed the full power of the cube, the fortress's energy core, and Maelstrom, unleashing a blast of pure force that tore through Vrax's ship, shattering it into pieces. The warlord's defeat sent a wave of shock through the enemy fleet. With Vrax gone and their dreadnought crippled, the tribunal forces began to retreat, their morale broken by the unexpected ferocity and unity of the human defenders. Sarah, though exhausted and wounded, felt a deep surge of hope and pride. The battle was won, but the cost was high. Many ships were lost, brave warriors had fallen, and the fortress itself was badly damaged. Yet humanity had survived, and the galaxy had witnessed a power it could no longer ignore. As the stars settled and silence returned to the void, Sarah stood beside Maelstrom, looking out over the battlefield. She understood that this victory was just one chapter in a much larger war, but it was proof that even in exile and silence, a single voice and a tamed beast could change the course of history. Her heart burned with determination, knowing that humanity's fight was far from over. The galaxy had learned a lesson: never underestimate the silent ones, for they might be the fiercest warriors of all. The battle had finally ended, but the silence that followed was heavy and filled with sorrow. The great fortress floated quietly in the vastness of space, battered and scarred from the brutal fight. Sarah stood on the observation deck, looking out at the stars that stretched endlessly around her. The weight of everything they had lost pressed on her heart: friends fallen in battle, ships destroyed, and the countless lives forever changed by war. Yet beneath the sorrow, there was a spark of hope that refused to be snuffed out. Humanity had survived an impossible trial, and though the cost was great, they had proven their strength, courage, and unyielding spirit. Maelstrom, the mighty beast she had tamed and fought alongside, rested nearby, its heavy breath slow and calm now, a silent guardian watching over her. Sarah knew that their bond was more than just power. It was a symbol of what humanity could achieve even when cast out and silenced. In the days that followed, the surviving human fleet gathered to rebuild and heal. Sarah worked tirelessly alongside engineers, scientists, and soldiers to repair the fortress and prepare for the challenges ahead. They sent messages back to Earth, telling of their victory and the cost it had brought, reminding their people that the fight for freedom was far from over. Despite the exhaustion, there was a renewed sense of unity and determination. Sarah's leadership inspired many, and her story spread like wildfire, an exile who had returned not with words but with actions that tamed a monster and changed the course of history. Across the galaxy, whispers of human resilience grew louder, drawing new allies and striking fear into the hearts of enemies who had once seen humanity as weak and scattered. Yet peace remained fragile. The tribunal was wounded but not destroyed. They retreated to regroup, nursing their losses and planning future strikes. Sarah understood this reality with clear eyes. The war would continue, and with it, the need for vigilance, strategy, and sacrifice. But she also knew that humanity was no longer the powerless exile it had once been. They had unleashed a power born of silence, unity, and fierce will, a power that no enemy could easily contain. Sarah and Maelstrom had become legends, their silent strength a beacon for those who believed in fighting not just with weapons, but with heart and resolve. One evening, as the repaired fortress hummed softly with renewed life, Sarah stood once more beside the observation window. The stars shone bright, each a reminder of the countless worlds out there, many still under threat, many waiting for hope. She allowed herself a rare moment of peace, thinking of the journey from exile to leader, from silence to roar. She knew that the road ahead would be long and dangerous, but she was ready. With Maelstrom at her side, the tamed beast who had become her greatest ally, Sarah was prepared to face whatever came next. The galaxy had changed because of them, and she vowed that humanity would never again be cast aside or silenced. The silent exile had tamed the beast, but more importantly, she had awakened a fire that would burn brightly across the stars for generations to come.